Hi there, welcome back to another video. Finally, we've gotten to the point now where we can bring together our web page, or at least a simple web page, and we can use that to directly write into our SQLite database. So what I've got in 5C is I've got the same template. The index.html hasn't changed at all from 5A. And I've got a database, just a copy of what we set up in 5B. And finally, we've got app.py. Now this has changed a bit, and we'll have a look at what's changed. Basically, it's this function here. So we're looking at this insert data over here. That function there has been changed. Before we had, let me just go to this Visual Studio Code. So before we just had this print statement, and now what we've got is we've got the actual code that will update our database. So just a matter of copying and pasting and creating all these elements together and run it. And let's have a look. So I'm going to run it for you so you can see what you should see. Integrated Python app.py comes up as per expected. On the web page, you'll get something like this, and we can just type stuff into it. Now, what we might do actually is might do a bit of a split again, and what we might do is actually have a look at the database. So once again, if you've got the what's it called, the extension to open up the database, you'll see the sort of contents of the database sitting here. So what we want to do is we want to type in a value here. So I'm going to type in ABC, for instance, ABC, and I click on submit. And you can see here that the ABC and V, I obviously did a typo, the ABC has come up in the database. So we've gotten to the point now where we've got code that can refresh this database. What I would want to highlight to you is that it's not safe code at the moment. What do I mean by that? Well, if you have a look here, you can see what we're doing is we're really just grabbing the contents of whatever was in, whatever was in our field up here, whatever was in up here, whatever we typed in there, and we're just putting it directly in the data. And you might think, well, what's the problem with that? Well, SQL injection. So once again, this relates back to our previous term where we were looking at security. This would be a bad way to do it because you could have problems with SQL injection. Now, luckily for us, SQLite actually has a bit of protection against that. So basically what SQL injection is would be something like this. So say we had, I've just lost my, oh, where am I? Over here. Okay, so say I'm at my database here and I type in ABC space and then I put in a string like this, and what I'm putting in is basically some SQL. So what I'm doing is I'm typing in some data, and then I'm saying there's another command after that data, execute my SQL. Now, luckily for us, as I say, my SQLite, has protection against that. And when I submit this, you'll find we get an error. So you can only execute one statement at a time. So what it's saying to us is that we already have one statement. Let's go back to the code. So we already have one statement, which is the insert. So if this thing here has another statement in it, like drop table, for instance, drop table, by the way, is delete the whole table. So a hacker would try this to delete the whole table. It actually fails. Now, remembering that SQLite is not what you would run production on. If you were doing this in production, you would run it on something like, say, PostgreSQL is a very common example. PostgreSQL does not have this inbuilt safety mechanism where you can only have one statement, like an insert or a drop. You can't have two statements together in the one execute. And it would literally, if we did this and we were connecting to a PostgreSQL server rather than this SQLite, it would do it. The SQL injection attack would actually work and it would end up dropping it. So this is not the best way to do this. It's just the simplest way and probably the way you would guess to do this. But we wouldn't actually do it this way. So we're going to look at how we can change this code to make it safer. So the answer to this is parameterized query. So if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see, so just reiterating what we just talked about, an SQL injection attack is where we go to a user input, and I'll just bring it up again so we can see it. We go to a user input and we're adding like SQL-like commands to the back of what should be a normal user input, okay? And that's getting interpreted by the SQL interpreter. So that's an injection attack. How do we protect ourselves? The best way is these parameterized queries. And basically, it's just changing this one line into this line. This line, I think, looks a little less obvious than this line, but it basically relies on the SQL driver. So the thing that actually we call within our Python program to execute SQL statements, and we rely on that to prevent any sort of extra SQL commands coming through. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to copy this one line of code. We're going to go over to our code. We're going to comment out, Control K, C, and we're going to paste that new line in. Okay, and very similar, there's not a lot of difference, but now what we're going to do is what will we do? We will maybe put ourselves on this split screen here. We'll go over, we will try again. So you can see here, I've still got that input there. Now what happened before was it crashed. Let's see what happens this time. So if I go submit, you'll see the form doesn't crash at all because it's no longer trying to pass those SQL statements as commands to be interpreted. And what you can also see is that when you look at the database itself, you can see now that it's not trying to execute any of this stuff, it's just inserting it straight into the table. So there's a couple of really important concepts there. So what we've got now, just in wrapping this up, is we've got a really basic a basic program, Python program, that can take input from a form, user submitted information from form, and we can insert that into a table. We can now take this code and adapt it to fit into our larger application, where our progressive web app, where we've got multiple fields and we need to do the same thing. But this structure is the basic structure that we can now use to move forward. So I'll see you in the next section where we actually go all the way back now to the form that we created in level 4, and we start to apply this sort of format to getting it to update a database. See you in the next video.